Good evening, it's just gone 7 PM. My name is Toby Lapati Mesme, and this is Thursday evening, the 7th of January 2021's edition of MesmePolitics. Over the next half hour, bringing you all the latest in UK and US politics from a unique leftist perspective. Let's get stuck in. Get in touch in the chat at any point. Coming up next on the show, we'll be talking about Gavin Williamson and his imposition of a very specific definition, the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism on universities, and why that may be problematic and a roadblock in terms of combating anti-Semitism in an apolitical way. I also want to talk to you before half past, before we wrap up, about the prospects of a race to the bottom Brexit, what senior Tories are saying, and how we can push back against the effort to turn Brexit into a deregulatory free-for-all. But now, at the top of the hour, our main show of the day, our main story of the day. There's been an attempted far-right coup, basically. An insurrection at the US Capitol. Joe Biden has been confirmed as the President of the United States. It is now in law. It cannot be changed. However, there's already talk of an impeachment of Trump. Don't worry, the Biden impeachment's probably down the road, knowing our luck. But yeah, this is the state of play. So, I mean, it really does deserve. You know, I'm sort of struggling where to start with this. The mob of this is from the New York Times. The mob of Trump supporters pressed through police barricades, broke windows, and battered their way with metal poles through the entrance to Congress. This is, unprecedented. Then, stunningly, they breached the place itself, forcing masked police officers to draw their guns to keep the insurgents off the chamber floor. What unfolded at that point, at times on national television, was a tableau of violence and mayhem that shocked the nation. One of the most severe intrusions of the capital since the British invaded during the War of 1812 and burned it down. An armed standoff ensued in the House chamber, with police officers drawing their weapons. A pro-Trump protester casually monkeyed around at the dais of the Senate. Intruders in Speaker Nancy Pelosi's suite overturned desks and smashed photos. Others ripped artwork in Senate highway offices. But if some only stared at the Capitol, others resorted to violence. The Capitol Police fatally shot a woman inside the building, according to the chief of the Metropolitan Police Department, and multiple officers were injured. Another woman and two men around the Capitol died from the separate medical emergencies as the mob charged to the building. And very worryingly, two explosive devices were found around noon near the headquarters of the Republican National Committee, then destroyed by a bomb squad. If anyone wants to take a crack at this and basically say this is not Trump's fault, I want you to listen to this before it all happened.
Here today do not want to see our election victory stolen by emboldened radical left Democrats, which is what they're doing, and stolen by the fake news media. That's what they've done and what they're doing. We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't concede when there's theft involved. Our country has had enough. We will not take it anymore, and that's what this is all about. And to use a favorite term that all of you people really came up with, we will stop the steal. We have come to demand that Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully slated. I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Today we will see whether Republicans stand strong for integrity of our elections, but whether or not they stand strong for our country. Our country. Our country has been under siege for a long time.
So, that's Donald Trump basically encouraging people to go over to the Capitol. At the end of the proceedings, at the end of the disaster that ensued, Joe Biden issued a condemnation.
At this hour, our democracy is under an unprecedented assault, unlike anything we've seen in modern times. An assault on the citadel of liberty, the Capitol itself. An assault on the people's representatives and the Capitol Hill police, sworn to protect them, and the public servants who work at the heart of our republic. An assault on the rule of law like few times we've ever seen it. An assault on the most sacred of American undertakings, the doing of the people's business.
The biggest stories.
That's Joe Biden there, basically, struggling to reconcile his truncated delusions of the supposed greatness of his country and patriotism of its citizens and peace and liberal democracy with the far-right mob that have overrun the US Capitol that a plurality of Republican voters support. This is the moment where Mike Pence had to face reality.
The whole number of electors appointed to vote for President of the United States is 538. Within that whole number, a majority is 270. The votes for President of the United States are as follows. Joseph R. Biden, Jr. of the state of Delaware has received 306 votes. Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 232 votes. The whole number of electors appointed to vote for Vice President of the United States is 538. Within that whole number, a majority is 270. The votes for Vice President of the United States are as follows. Kamala D. Harris of the state of California has received 306 votes. Michael R. Pence of the state of Indiana has received 232 votes. The announcement of the state of the vote by the President of the Senate shall be deemed a sufficient declaration of the persons elected President and Vice President of the United States, each for the term beginning on the 20th day of January, 2021, and shall be entered together with the list of the votes on the journals of the Senate and the House of Representatives.
There you go. Done. Wasn't so hard, was it? Well, 4 people dead in the process, but there we go. Unprecedented. And unprecedented is definitely a word we overuse. But there's no other word here. It is entirely, wholly unprecedented. We've never seen anything on this scale in modern times in America. In the country itself. I'm aware they've funded efforts like this abroad time and time again. And in the country itself, we've not seen anything like this before. And American politics has been bloody, it's been polarised, it's been regularly detached from reality or beholden to far-right actors, but it's never quite reached this point before in modern times. This is 1800s level stuff. The blow to democracy, to faith in democracy, is fatal. Even more fatal than many of us thought it would be originally. This is the death knell, the nail in the coffin of American democracy. It is a historic moment for all the wrong reasons. It is something our children and our grandchildren will learn about in education, right? This will be a lesson. This will be part of the syllabus. Even in the UK, we're living through quite disturbing history, which may be recounted as the beginning of the end of liberal democracy and the beginning of the rise of far-right forces right across the West. Maybe the Biden administration will be a mere interlude, a mere sandwich of moderate complacency between 2 increasingly sinister far-right presidents. this is the result of having a president for 4 years who, while not being a fascist, has given space, and not being an overt white supremacist, has given the microphone to the far right, to white supremacists, to fascists, made them feel welcome, made them feel accepted, but also committed enough to hideous, ugly neoliberal policies to have a significant, not insignificant, pretty significant minority of the corporate class behind him financially. I mean, the hypocrisy of liberals who are now saying, or neoconservatives, or anyone that isn't a Trumpist, basically, but aren't on the left, of saying this is, a betrayal of the core principles America was founded on. No, it's not. America was founded on anti-democratic principles. It was founded, because of wealthy landowners who didn't want to pay tax. It, had the whole not counting certain people as actual full human beings enshrined in it at the beginning. It's never remotely reconciled with the demons that are still in its closet, that have not even begun to unpack them. People are still flying the Confederate flag in the South. And abroad, they have funded, when stuff like this happens abroad, it tends to succeed, and it's often funded by the CIA, right? It's often backed by the US government. So I'll hear no talk about the wound to democracy. If anything, this is karma. The true nature of the beast has been exposed. What Donald Trump has done is exposed the true ugly nature of the beast that is the American body politic. Actions need to be taken immediately. Ilhan Omar is already taking action, drawing up articles of impeachment. We need to see articles of impeachment drawn up. This is, I can't see any scenario where that isn't the immediate course of action we must take. If impeachment can happen in time, maybe not, and it's highly probable the votes won't be there to get it done. Impeachment, if it was put through, because Trump has actually done something to deserve impeachment in facilitating this, it would allow him never to hold public office ever again. That would be the goal there, right? That's what has to be done. The man is a serious threat. There's already talk of the 25th Amendment. I think that is another immediate way to deal with this. 25th Amendment, get him out of office, put Pence in for the remainder of the 2 weeks that this administration has left. Have a peaceful transition of power. That's sort of what we need to happen. Pence did, in the end, do his duty, but he has as much blood on his hands as Mitch McConnell does as well. Just because they've turned around at the last minute does not mean that they're exonerated. They have enabled this for years. Every single person who hasn't left the Republican Party, save maybe a minimal handful, are entirely complicit in everything that's happened over these 4 years, including Mitch McConnell, including Mike Pence, including Lindsey Graham, of course. All of these clowns, even if they claim to have more liberal sensibilities or just be a little bit more enamoured with democracy. Comparing this, the right and the centre in Britain have forayed into some sort of Corbyn derangement syndrome. People have been saying Corbyn would have done this. Need I remind you that Jeremy Corbyn lost a general election in a landslide and literally none of us did anything? Did anyone storm Parliament, call the election illegitimate, kill anyone? No. People were unhappy. People said it wasn't fair, that they'd been demonised and slandered, but everyone said, look, people voted this way, that's what we've got for 5 years now. No one disputed that for one moment. No one called Johnson an illegitimate Prime Minister, at least no one of consequence. I certainly never did, and I was devastated. The comparisons are stupid. Comparing it with the People's Vote marches as well is stupid, but it is true that the People's Vote marches did have an anti-democratic aspect, a deeply sinister anti-democratic element to them. However, Most of it was lovely, peaceful, liberal, diverse crowds of people, giving out free hugs more than a violent insurrection. So again, comparisons to Corbynism are beyond stupid. Comparisons to the People's Vote marches are just illiterate, and you're trying to make a point that isn't there to be made. So I think we can put both of those to bed for the idiotic political illiteracy that they are from the pundit class. The disparity with which these people have been treated, because they're far-right interlopers, basically, they've been treated fine. The police were taking selfies with them and things like that, compared to the Black Lives Matter protesters who were marching for justice and were far less aggressive. A couple of shop fronts got smashed at one point. They've literally invaded the Capitol. I'm telling you what, if people with darker skin had done this, or for a cause involving black people's lives, they would have been gunned down on the spot, handled brutally, not had selfies taken with them by law enforcement. There is a continual element of collaboration between the police and the far right. And it means the security state is instinctively hostile to anything left-wing. That's why most police departments back Trump. There's a serious issue there that really needs to be looked into. Now, on to our second story of the day. A group of eminent lawyers, including 2 former appeals court judges, has accused Gavin Williamson, the Education Secretary, of improper interference with universities' autonomy and right to give free expression. They say that Williamson's insistence that universities adopt the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's definition of anti-Semitism or face sanctions is, quote, legally and morally wrong. Saying it would be an improper interference with their autonomy, and that the impact on public discourse both inside and outside universities has already been significant. A key problem with it is certain examples within the definition. The original definition is this. Anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed towards Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, towards Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. There's absolutely nothing to disagree with there. But out of the 11 illustrative examples, 7 relate to the state of Israel. So according to a working group, it disproportionately draws debate over Israel and Palestine into conversations around anti-Semitism, potentially conflating anti-Zionism, which is a position I would hold, with anti-Semitism, therefore risking the suppression of legitimate speech and academic research, as it already does. If we have a look, this is 4 reasons why you should oppose the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. It's from Independent Jewish Voices Canada from earlier in the year. I thought it was eminently appropriate to go to a Jewish source for this, rather than just, splurge out my opinion. Now have a listen to this. It's off YouTube. Full credit obviously goes to the creators of this video.
Anti-Semitism is on the rise today. It's real and it's a threat to Jewish communities. Fighting it is a must. Knowing what anti-Semitism is and how to identify it is important if we're going to fight it. But currently there's an organized effort to conflate anti-Semitism with legitimate criticism of Israel. The International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, or the IHRA's definition, does just that. The IHRA is an intergovernmental organization of 34 member countries. Pro-Israel lobby groups are pushing universities, governments, municipalities, and other organizations to adopt the IHRA's definition. The IHRA's definition could have disastrous consequences for anyone who stands for Palestinian human rights or anyone who cares about freedom of expression or academic freedom. Here are 4 reasons why you should oppose the IHRA's definition of anti-Semitism. The IHRA's definition of anti-Semitism has little to do with actual anti-Semitism. Its goal is to stifle legitimate criticism of Israeli state policy. 7 out of the 11 examples of anti-Semitism listed in the IHRA's definition specifically mention Israel. If the IHRA is really about combating anti-Semitism, which is hatred against the Jewish people, why the disproportionate focus on Israel? Anti-Semitism is real and deadly. The IHRA's definition is vague and confusing.
This is a small sample of that content. Please go and research it and look into the variety of Jewish academics, Jewish community groups, left-wing Jewish groups that are basic, or just pro-Palestine or anti-Zionist Jewish groups that are, it's not necessarily a left or a right thing, that have spoken out about this. It's been an ongoing debate for a long time. The problem with this is it's about freedom of speech. I think it's not really relevant where you stand on the Israel-Palestine thing. Obviously, I have a very strong position on that, but I don't think that anyone that holds a different view to me on the settler colonial nature of the Israeli state should really want that debate to be dragged into something that should be wholly apolitical and purely about combating anti-Semitism. And the left has the free speech issue. This is censorship, basically. It's not tackling hate speech, because we're not dealing with hate speech. Hate speech against Jewish people is entirely separate from criticism of Israel, except in the most extreme cases where someone, I don't know, accuses Israel of running all the banks or something ridiculous like that, then it becomes a trope, right? But generally, there's a very clear line, and people criticise Israel, and it's construed with anti-Semitism. This divides communities, when all communities, all minority communities, and all communities in Britain should be coming together to combat all forms of prejudice. It muddies the water, basically. It pits one minority against another, one religious group against another. It is, the antithesis of combating actual racism in society, including anti-Semitism and all other forms of racism. It makes it political. We don't want to make combating hate crimes towards Jews political. The right are the real, peddlers of cancel culture. We've seen people on Twitter being threatened to be sued for saying a certain thing that's upset a certain right-wing commentator, all these different things that really, there are a few Twitter pylons from people with 2 followers on the internet, but the real institutionalized cancel culture and censorship almost always comes from the right or the radical centre. About this particular government we have at the moment, there is a bit of a Trumpian authoritarian streak in terms of all these institutions, the packing the BBC with people who've donated hundreds of thousands of pounds to the Conservative Party, getting very authoritarian on a handful of dinghies coming in across the English Channel, all these different things. It's populist, but it is a very worrying turn towards some degree of authoritarianism that I think we should all be worried about. No way around it. There's virtually nothing libertarian about this government other than slashing your rights, your standards, your protections. Other than that, they have no respect for people's, this isn't a lockdown thing. Lockdowns are necessary. The whole lockdown debate is not what I'm getting into here. I think most governments, or almost all British governments, would understand the need for restrictions in light of COVID, but I'm talking more freedom of speech, freedom to assemble. All these different things this government has taken a particularly hard line on that can only be compared, really, with Trump's White House. I want to play you this now. This is from the BBC. It's a care unit nurse, Steph Gorman, just reminding us how dire the state of things in the middle of this pandemic are right now.
If it is as bad as it was, we did it, we'll do it again. It's just how many more times can we keep doing it? One of my patients he was quite young, and we just got him onto the ward bed, and he was chatting to his wife. We were so excited for him, and he started to deteriorate very rapidly because COVID patients did deteriorate very, very rapidly. And he had a cardiac arrest, and we fought for like an hour and a half trying to bring him back, and we just couldn't. And I still remember him, I still think of him and remember his kids' names. And it's not just him, they're not forgotten, they're all with us, we know their families, we're thinking about them. And I think every single time that we didn't get there, we felt like this isn't the right time for them. Well, that's certainly how I felt, like it wasn't the right time. We were fighting every single time, every single patient that came in, we were just fighting to keep them going. And you can't help but feel like a bit of like you've let them down. But hopefully this time, we've got more drugs, we know more about it. Hopefully now it'll be different. So there's a couple of people that definitely stand out in my memory. Like one of our patients was a really big cyclist and cycled loads before he got COVID. And we've just heard that he's back cycling again and is still doing like 50-mile bike rides, which is phenomenal to think that he's been through ITU care and now he's back doing bike rides. The difference we've made to the individuals is that they have their lives back. They came out, they're walking, they're talking, they're seeing their family, they're seeing their friends. I think that's the biggest difference you can make to someone's life. Even the families that weren't able to make it for, I think that knowing that we were always there, always holding their loved ones' hands, no one's ever on their own here, we're always right by their side, and we treat them like they are our own family. I feel like it's a little bit tense at the minute. Everyone's tired, everyone's drained out from the year. I feel as ready as we can be. I came into nursing because I wanted to make a difference. I go home at night knowing that I've made someone's life that little bit better by the actions that me or my colleagues or that we've all done today. Someone's slightly better, someone's on their way home, someone's family feels slightly more comforted, and that is the best feeling in the world. That's why you do your job.
Weirdly uplifting, just knowing that there are people like that out there in our society that will go through all that willingly, not being paid much, not really being respected much, and they do it. Heroes. Someone says, Blizz_4R says, I think that it should raise issues that the universities are refusing this. I think that's accepting the IRA definition. Williamson, in my opinion, should be sacked, but not for this. I think we can all agree Williamson should be sacked, not because of this. But I think the principle we have to keep in mind here, right, is I can't think of anything more corrosive to dealing with anti-Semitism in any form in society than conflating anti-Semitism with Israel, immediately making it political, immediately turning it into a way to scapegoat pro-Palestinian activists as opposed to tackling actual anti-Semitism in Britain, which is overwhelmingly from the far right, and is often ignored by the media, or aided by the media indeed, when they're busy chasing pro-Palestinian activists down the road. And I also think it's a freedom of speech issue, right? Criticism of Israel is not hate speech, therefore it shouldn't be labelled as such, inadvertently losing people their scholarships at universities. There couldn't be anything less liberal, less democratic, less small c conservative, at least the principles conservatives profess to stand for. Someone says, Williamson is a dangerous clown but seems impervious to consequences for his actions. Unfathomable. It's true. I mean, I don't know how you have this sort of mindset where you still not quit at this point, for a variety of reasons beyond IRA, obviously. Okay, final story of the day. Moving on to this. A leading Tory, credited with inspiring Brexit, has urged Boris Johnson to cull a raft of EU consumer and worker protections now the UK has the freedom to act. Safeguards for the use of data, pay and conditions, GM foods, hedge funds, dangerous chemicals, and the disposal of environmentally damaging vehicles should all be binned, David Hannan said, saying change is coming. To succeed outside the EU, we need to be fitter, leaner and more globally engaged. He's a former MEP who's just been made a Conservative peer. And this comes after the Prime Minister vowed to start breaking free from EU rules. Now the post-Brexit transition period here is over, saying, quote, we have nothing to fear. Do we have anything to fear from Brexit? No, not particularly. Do we have something to fear from a race to the bottom? Yeah, we sort of do. No one voted for a race to the bottom Brexit. Even people who were persuaded by right-wing arguments to vote for Brexit, a lot of the vote was driven on hatred towards immigrants and things like that, things that the left is implacably opposed to. However, and I'm talking as someone on the left, who would look at the option of Leave and Remain and plump for Leave while disaffiliating themselves with the official Leave campaign. No one voted, including right-wing voters, no one voted for a race to the bottom Brexit. Voting for Johnson's government? No. No one said there'd be a race to the bottom. Voting Leave? No. No one. Not Michael Gove, not Nigel Farage, not Boris Johnson, not George Galloway. No one. None of the campaigns for Leave talked about a race to the bottom. What we have to do is fight and shape and build pressure. Shape post-Brexit Britain. Fight for our vision of EU exit is. And build pressure on the government to prevent them doing something like this. This is why we should have embraced Brexit from the start, as the left. We should have looked at it, thrown the kitchen sink at it, and made our vision the vision that stuck, like we did with the austerity argument. We won the austerity argument. We need to make it politically, untenable to engage in a race to the bottom, and when it starts, shout about it, shout and shout and shout until the government knows if they carry on, they'll get voted out of office. The wing of capital that supported EU withdrawal, that wants lower rights, lower standards, and basically a minimal tax haven, low tax, low wage tax haven off the coast of Europe, will fight for that vision of Brexit. You know, they bankroll Vote Leave, they bankroll Aaron Banks and Nigel Farage. We have to organise and make the case for a progressive vision of Brexit. Of all the things that, particularly with a few renegotiations and tweaks down the road in 5 years under a Labour government, I don't think we'll have a Labour government in 5 years, but if we did, you know, the sort of things we could achieve and alter, and all our priorities we haven't been able to take back control of for decades, we could. That's what we should be thinking about. We need to organise and make the case for that. The EU was never, I hate to, you know, burst the bubble of the Remain and Reform folks, but the EU was never a strong bulwark against the forces we're about to come up against. The EU would have ceded ground, it would have capitulated, it would have allowed a race to the bottom through the back door. We are not, you know, really, really protected in the EU or really, really exposed outside the EU. We have to shape the politics, right? We can vote these people out. We can organise, we can mobilise. It's the same either way. And the thing about being outside is the government's directly responsible for all the evils it causes. Therefore, we can really hold them accountable for it. And that's the thing. So that's it from me today. I have been Toby Lapati Mesme. Get in touch in the chat. Say hello. Let me know what you thought of the show. We'll be back at 7 PM Greenwich Mean Time tomorrow. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Tell your friends. We want to grow. Get notifications on. We're with you every single day, bringing you all the latest in UK and US politics from a unique leftist perspective. I'm Toby Lapati Mesme. This has been MesmePolitics. That's a lot of bubbles burst in the space of, what, half an hour? Just to go full Ben Shapiro on everyone. Facts don't care about your feelings. They don't. I'm just putting the facts out there, you know. AHRA definition of anti-Semitism, myths busted. Race to the bottom Brexit, myths busted. Attempted coup being equated with people's vote, busted. So many lies out there, man. If there's any topics you want us to discuss or just anything you want to contribute, please email me, tobyjoshua2004@gmail.com. If you want to see what I've been writing, my twice daily column about British politics on Medium, please get me on Medium at TobyJoshuaPolitics. You can follow me on Twitter for my daily hot takes at TobyJoshuaUK. My pin tweet changes a lot, but my current pin tweet is what the Democratic agenda for 2021 should be if the US Democratic Party doesn't want a rollicking in the 2022 elections. It's 7:33. I'm going to bid you a good evening.
Like that.